we'll turn down jobs all the time. We'll turn down jobs all the time just because of unrealistic expectations, and we don't want to lead people astray. We don't want people to be hopeful and then go to the bank and get laughed out of the office. That's no fun for anybody. I mean, that's embarrassing. So we try to be brutally honest in the beginning, and then that way, hey, we've got a saying: we try to be as pessimistic as possible to have a budget for optimism.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Pros Podcast. I'm your host, Erica, and today I'm excited to be chatting with Jeremy Wenger. He's been making serious moves with his company, Urban Planning Pros. Jeremy, I'm glad to have you here.
Same. I'm glad to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, and I think our listeners are really going to be fascinated with how you're helping investors when it comes to developing. So, let's dive on in. First, Jeremy, for our listeners, who aren't familiar with your world, can you share how you got into the real estate world and then what inspired you to form Urban Planning Pros?
Yeah. Man, it's shoot, grew up working with my dad in the tree industry here in North Alabama, and after one thing after another over the past, I'd say 15 years or so, and being involved in different aspects of real estate, from helping other people make a lot of money to where now it's a matter of what I've seen, and there's a lot of investors that mean well, but a lot of times they plan wrong, and then they end up the creek without the paddle, and that's where that's the essential mission behind Urban Planning Pros, is to help plan better, so that way you've got a good team that can handle what you're looking to accomplish as an investor, but also too to make sure that you know what you're looking at through a sober lens instead of something that just fits. Because it's not just one thing as far as an engineer to technically make sure the plans fit, but also to work with the investor to say, okay, will this pencil based on XYZ, right? And that's where we've really carved out a niche for ourselves. We're not just planning projects, excuse me, but we're not just planning projects to be able to, we're not just planning projects to be able to help people get to a finish line, but also to help them actually make and secure their legacy. And we're about as real as it gets. That's why it's all good. So, but it's like we look at, like, how can we go from concept to full construction, or even then to entitlements, or to being shovel ready, because products are different. Everyone's got their different focus. We are, I mean, I would say we are about as open canvas as it gets when it comes to projects. Our team has handled 1,000-acre solar farms all the way down to an ADU in the backyard with a driveway redesign. I mean, it's interesting because when it comes to our team being, we have got over 100 years experience in civil engineering, structural engineering, soil engineering, and making sure that we've got master, as far as even the master land planning, to lay out these large projects and stage them out correctly and make sure that there's a good balance between who can handle the jobs as far as management goes to be able to actually handle the throughput and make sure that you've got what you need as far as the actual outcome. Because all that word salad means that you have a good concept, paint the vision and make it plain, and then that way you've got the right people to carry out the parts of the plan. Because
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
half the time engineers are very technically inclined, but they don't understand asset classes and business models. And that's kind of what makes us really different when it comes down to being able to say, okay, you want to do multifamily. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. But then also let's look at other options based on what the wetlands, floodway, flood zone, two very different things, floodway and flood zone, and being able to identify what can be built and what could be built and what should be built. Three very different things because a lot of people go to contract, and I've painfully watched this happen, where people go to contract and then try to figure it out. Why? And I just don't, for me, that's a lot of stress. Two, like, why would you rush to something to lock yourself up into something and then try to figure your way out? Know your way through before you actually go into putting the contract through. Because I think that for us, when it comes to urban planning pros, when it comes down to, yeah, we're nationwide in our operations, and we can have a field team out there next week if we need to. But the purpose behind urban planning pros is to help people as far as investors make sure that you have a good exit strategy from the beginning before you go into contract, but also too knowing exactly what in the world can be done as far as feasibility wise, because we'll handle the engineering and surveying, ownership representation, but also that ownership representation. We've had a lot of people say, well, I thought you were the partner. I'm like, no, we're just ownership rep. We're that's a good, that's for how great we are at that part of it. But we want to make sure that we've got a good supportive team to help investors who need direction, not just needing plans, right? And sometimes that kind of means the same thing to folks, but when it comes to the direction of the project and the development, a lot of investors have money, but they don't have that vision, or they don't have the wherewithal to say, okay, maybe this may be a good idea for this stage one or stage two, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of folks that they have their sandbox that they love to play in, and they just need help to expand. And that's where we can come in too, because we can help scale. And we've partnered with landowners to be able to do GP projects as well, very selective on those, but we want to make sure that investors are actually understanding what they're getting themselves into before they go to contract, and then try to go in through the entire construction phase and then try to scrounge for pennies when they can genuinely be restful and relax with a good plan. Because I mean, that's what the word says. You want to be able to count the house before you want to count the cost of the house before you try and go build it. Yeah, that's just good life advice, but also too especially for when you have, at risk at hand, you definitely want to make sure you consider things ahead of time.
Yeah, there are so many considerations and aspects that can turn a deal sideways, and I'm sure you've seen that. Now, for I'm just curious because excuse me, there, my phone's normally on silent. For our for our listeners, they've had a lot of twists and turns in the real estate world. Have you had a moment with a client where you've kind of helped them already when they're further along, and they're under contract? Do you help with that, navigating those difficult moments too?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, depends on throughout, like, the terms on that contract too, right? Timelines matter, right? And so we can jump into deals that are already under contract to figure out what the feasibility study is or what the feasibility of that development is going to be all the time, but we're mindful of the timelines. We're always going to be able to, we always want to make sure we're managing expectations correctly and not giving them false hope. I can't stand it when contractors jump into something and then they hit people with a change order, right?
If you're looking for consistent, high quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
It happens, duh. But why not front load as much as we possibly can, right? And I'm kind of tacking back earlier on modular stuff. That's not our go-to. That's what happens to turn out to be a really solid option at times. But of course, traditional stick and cinder block builds, panel builds, all that kind of stuff are options. But it's like when you're already into a contract, you got to be mindful of the timelines, and then also too figuring out exactly how can we really understand from the beginning what are you stepping into? Because what have you done to that point too? Because if they're already under contract for stuff, they've already got pressure on them, and we want to make sure that we're going through and not skipping details, right? Because if we're certifying the engineering side of stuff, then guess what? They're able to sue us if we do something wrong, right? That's no bueno. And so we always want to look at how can we do a feasibility study in the beginning, figure out what is the highest and best use of that property, come back with a solid report, and then put together a good scope of work for that potential direction, A, B, C, or D, depending on what they're looking at doing with that. Because many things can fit, but not everything pencils correctly the way that that person is anticipating or intending, because they may have been, I mean, the contract's the contract. The unwritten expectations are the things that really make that kind of stuff difficult. And that's where if they're we've had it plenty of times when people have us hire us to do feasibility studies and then they're like 3 days later, we need this done. I'm like, yeah, yeah, no. So just nope. And so there's a little tough love in there, but to set the expectation correctly in the beginning, we'll go through and handle anything that's needed as far as any kind of current contractual, any kind of contract terms, help them understand exactly what they're looking at. If it's, if we need to do a phase one ESA report as far as the condition of the property based on, buildings and, look at soil reports as far as as far as the percolation of the soil, where can we start building and what can we start doing? Because you may have it under contract, but your logistics are what's going to determine where you start at, right? And that goes back to soil condition. It goes back to the value add. What is the initial approach and the strategy? And can they actually do it based on their funding sources too, because of where things need to begin? Accessibility is a big thing, and that's where we start with. I mean, that's actually, I remember growing up in the tree. I was working with my dad in the tree business. Man, I used to carry these 15-pound big floppy pads. Holy cow. We put them down for the bucket trucks because then that way we wouldn't leave ruts in the yard and it wouldn't get stuck. I mean, those things are probably maybe 4 foot wide and 8 foot long, and they'd bow up like that because of the bucket trucks that were so heavy. But what I'm getting at is that, growing up, accessibility in the tree industry was a big issue because then you have to get in the backyard and do all that kind of stuff. It doesn't change for here when it comes down to how can you get into the property, easement access, et cetera, so on and so forth. So it's like how can we capture that expectation and those terms that they're under right then and there, measure their timelines, because this is a talk that I have with either wholesalers or those who do seller acquisition purchases. How did you buy it, right? Or how are you planning to buy it, right? And so that way we know exactly if we're going to do a preliminary stage of something comparatively to a full blown land planning, master plan. So there's a lot of stuff that we factor in, from wetlands to accessibility to timber to wetland credits to, where is this located at with the opportunity zones 2.0 that have come out, right? Like how can we layer in different things for them to give them the best optimal outcome, but then also look at how can we structure it to where now you've got, based on what you were looking at originally, here's a couple different ideas that you may not have considered, but then now you can actually entertain them if your timelines are good and so on. I mean, just so many different unknowns that go into that. So
It seems like what you do, it's so dependent on the situation and the information that you find. So, do you have any stories, because you were talking about those opportunities that, you were able to find creative solutions or ideas that weren't otherwise considered?
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
oh man, um, shoot, there's a lot. I'd say there's one I can think of that client, it's his first development, and he went into your first ground up development, went at it with five different concepts, and then halfway through the project, after we got the engineering approved from the city, decided to say, well, I want to do something different. I'm like, uh, okay, but if you decide to do that, then here's what's going to come along with it, and all the additional money you're going to have to pay to then readjust stuff, because he was brand new, and of course he's still going through his development. We got everything to the finish line for certain stages of the project, which is great. But now it's a matter of making sure that he's got his capital raise is good to then carry to the next stage of it. Heck, we've had people start out with wanting to do say 30 doors on a piece of property, and then shift to doing a mix of retail and industrial, right? Because they were like, wow, the numbers do make sense based on timelines and margin, right? Because you have barriers of entry when it comes to projects based on zoning and wetlands and accessibility. And what most people don't talk about is NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. And so that's a thing. And so we've always tried to make sure we shift people's expectations halfway through it based on, what they're trying to approach. And so with a guy that wanted to shift and do different things, we're like, well, yes, you're welcome to do that, but here's the cost associated with that. If we take this back to the city, get the site plan redrawn, do et cetera, so on and so forth. We ran through all of those steps, ran through all the margins is based on what he's trying to build, and he just stuck with that original plan because he saw, oh wow. Yeah, that's not as easy as I thought. And so we've even too had some folks to where they've got land where they wanted to do cattle ranching, right? Great. Love it. My family are farmers from Iowa, and so I'm now born and raised here in Alabama. But man, I tell you, um, you look at the pros and cons to everything, right? And you look at how can we structure it to do something that may incorporate equipment storage and be able to build out something for the community, or do we do it as cattle grazing? Sorry, I was over here, brain almost blanked on the word. But can we combine grazing cattle with selling beef to be able to then bring that to, straight to the market, right? How do we do that without coming out of pocket overhead with so much overhead? We build a waiting list. We build the anticipation, because even the USDA is going to want to be able to then say, okay, but how are you going to pay us back? No matter what. The lender is always going to ask, how are you paying us back? Like, that's just obvious. And what a lot of folks don't understand is that for some reason, investors, if you're out there and you're thinking that you're going to get 100% financing, it's very rare, but you're going to have to pay for people's money. You are going to have to pay for people's money. And so there's a lot of stuff that we've had to reset expectation with during a project, even to halfway through it, but especially beginning with it. That's why we go through our own version of SWOT analysis on stuff as far as projects go, because everyone is excited in the beginning. And just like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit. And it's just like, I mean, dear Lord, until that in Mortal Kombat, until you have your first TKO like in life, you're not really going to understand it. And it's, man, I tell you, and it's interesting because with projects that start with developments for homes, then get switched over to a combination of residential, then storage, or if they get it mixed with like retail or whatever, how can we anchor those different developments that have a low barrier of entry without having a high pushback? And it's like, how can we restructure that? Because everyone's lending parties are all different, right? Folks are working with institutions, folks are working with private lenders, folks are working with family offices, lines of credit. They're all different types of monies that have different terms attached to them. That's why all money is not good money, right? And it's not a matter of saying all money, like some money is evil. Yes, it sure is. But based on the terms, let's break that down, based on the terms and who's involved in that project, that determines whether or not it's good or bad for that project. Because that's where we look at, I mean, so many different things from managing expectations for even with the city too, because that's why that's why engineers are great, but a lot of them are technically inclined, and making sure that based on the presentation project, as far as the project pitching to the right partners, I mean, heck, we've had clients where they communicate everything to everyone, and the people in front of them only care about 10% about what they're talking about. They're just like, this is my amazing thing that I care so much about. And the lender's like, womp, 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 and here's how you're getting your money back. That's all they care about. That's all they hear, right? The city's only going to care about the aesthetics, the location, and the septic and water management, right? And it's like, how can we then bring all of that together, man? Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we've had to readjust halfway through projects where they've started with the residential in mind, then became mixed use, or mixed use, and then became full on residential, and some that where we just flat out have put together the whole entire project together for the past, I'd say, year and a half, 2 years on some that are cattle ranching. So, I mean, we're doing client projects all the time, no matter what. If we're involved in the planning side of it, as far as the project goes, as a partner or not, we're always doing phase one ESA reports. But as I'm talking with people, I'm asking them about their vision, and that way we can help them get to what they need, because there's always this chicken and the egg when it comes to real estate. So everyone's needing answers half the time, but they don't have them, and yet they want to have contractors do the work for free. I mean, essentially, in the hopes that they get approved, and that's no bueno. A lot of times, that's where things kind of fall apart, because they've pulled together a team with the expectation that everyone who's going to work for them is going to put together these scopes of work without any skin in the game. And that's where things are starting to fall apart a lot of these past, I'd say, 2, 3 years too, because heck, we've had people come to us for feasibility studies and like, wait, you're not going to pay for it? I'm like, who raised you? What? Who trained you? No. Like we are the contractors. And so on certain projects, but man, that's where we look at, selective projects. We'll even come in and GP with folks and try to do what we can. And that's where we don't try to take on rescue projects, even on the client side of stuff, because half the time there's a lot. I mean, I'd say, I mean, I'm being generous about half the time. Half the time they do fall apart just because of bad planning in the beginning. So if they're under contract terms already, then we look at the timelines, kind of go back to the original question. We try to be respectful of that and realistic. I mean, heck, we'll turn down jobs all the time. We'll turn down jobs all the time just because of unrealistic expectations, and we don't want to lead people astray. We don't want people to be hopeful and then go to the bank and get laughed out of the office. That's no fun for anybody. I mean, that's embarrassing. So we try to be brutally honest in the beginning, and then that way, hey, we've got a saying: we try to be as pessimistic as possible to have a budget for optimism.
I love that. That is such a good way to look at the planning. Well, Jeremy, this has been such an insightful conversation today. If someone wants to reach out to you, connect, maybe they need your services at Urban Planning Pros. What's the best way for them to reach you?
They can just they can either email me or just go to the contact page on our site. Our application's there. They can fill out all of their scope of work and what they need. urbanplanningpros.com/contact. Very straightforward. And the email for the team is info@urbanplanningpros.com. And so that's the easiest and best way, the fastest way actually to get a response from us, because if you can line out stuff as far as in our application or email us the scope of work that you're needing, then we can go ahead and put together an estimate for you to make sure that we've got your vision captured, understood exactly what you need to do as far as logistics go, and then put together next steps.
For our listeners who really are interested, what states are you operating in?
I mean, we're operating in all 50 states. I mean, we're not working much in Alaska or Hawaii, but right now, as far as the mainland, we're right now working in all of I mean, we're nationwide. I mean, we've just been working a lot in the Sun Belt from Texas over to the Carolinas, in that area. But we've done projects all over, man. I mean, from Oklahoma to Indiana to Utah to California. I mean, we're really not limited because our field teams are licensed in all our states, because we don't want to limit people to it, but also too we'll make sure that, I mean, heck, if it's something that we can't serve, then we will just be straight up with folks.
Again, Jeremy, appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For our listeners today, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you're subscribed to the Real Estate Pros podcast. We've got more conversations lined up with pros like Jeremy who are building fantastic real estate businesses. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.